Okay, economic development and sustainable development. So basically, that is our page 422. Okay, 422. Okay, this topic it seems like to be a refresh or recap topics of previous one, but some of it we actually cover in cover in other topics, but um, section 4 is actually looking at developing countries and looking at why are they not developed, what will be their problems, what will be the solutions of that, what should be done by the countries or other nations or even the publics or any other party stakeholders in that country. So to do that on economic developments, we always recap balik the first one. If you look at the page 4 to 2, the end of the chapters, right? 422. Okay. Kita boleh enlarge tak, Husna? Okay. We have a teacher. I set tak berapa bagus sangat, then we need a bigger font. Okay, so quite a number of it is a recap questions, but towards the ends, only then we move into what actually we are looking at in chapter 4 will be economic development. So bear in mind, in the old syllabus, economic developments is actually a topic on its own, but in new syllabus, they combine international trades and economic development as one. They call it global. Right, so this is how this is it. Okay. So the first thing is that we have economic growth and economic development. So if you were to recap on economic growth, the first thing we look at is Fakul, when we say economic growth, what the first thing that we look at or we pay more attention in talking economic growth?
We see the GDP.
Yes, GDP, material stuff, national income, GDP per capita, right, or GNP per capita, all those things, economic growth, because we are looking at a monetary aspects, materials. And what about economic developments? Amra?
Real output ke teacher?
Real output, tambah? Dia banyak lagi? Economic development is not real output saja, tambah?
National income.
National income lagi? Dia development? Tambahlah development sikit. Yang cakap tadi semua material. Talking about people living a country. We are looking at employments, yeah. Another simple way of talking about employment tu masuk juga lah. Another simple cost of living. Oh, thank you. Other than cost of living, cost is that, how much it costs you, how much it takes of your money to live, is it right? GDP per capita. What else? We are looking at the conditions they live in. Is it what you say? Is it
national happiness to the
happiness? Yes, true. Another simple one which is living standard. Yes, all those things are related to that. It's just that when you say living standard, they cover a lot of things in terms of your happiness, boleh masuk, in terms of are they having a comfortable life, right? Comfortable life could be means that if cost of living is very expensive, then the standard of living is getting, may be affected as well. Okay, then we have economic growth, economic development. So all those are recap ones on talking about economic sustainable. So we'll be able to keep whatever we have or even much better in the future, our next generation. So the question will be depending on our efforts, today's generation efforts, how much they do to improve the environment or sustain the environment. Then we're talking about current status of the sustainable development goals. Okay, development goals, something that you have to know by heart because there was a question on what would be the objective of sustainable development goals in your paper 2. So this is something that you know to know. If you have it like 1 or 2 marks questions, okay, then talking about between sustainability and poverty. Okay, and of course, this yes, you are right. This is very much an essay questions, but you have to bear in mind it can simply be your paper 2 as well. Okay, so for uh, if you take notes, the essay question usually reserved for micro and macro, your paper ones. Talking about microeconomics, talking about say, price controls, or maybe or talking about resource allocation, PPCs, or we having like subsidies and tax, right? Or those are microeconomics, elasticities, right? Or microeconomics will be on the like unemployment, national incomes, inflations, or government strategies. Those are the AC questions. So most of the times, your paper 3, sorry, your paper 2 is this one, eh? It could be exchange rates, balance of payments, protectionism. But the beauty of your paper 2 now is that it has a longer essay questions. It will be like 50 marks. It's the same as an essay questions in your paper 1, but it's even harder because you have to relate, you have to make a reference from the text. Okay, so uh, so it's no longer like paper 2 is the essays that's is it's like a definitions, it diagrams, but do have a lengthy one. So evaluation. So in it's more of demands of your essays lah, right? And you we have to bear in mind for our assessments, standard level assessments, our IA, your internal assessment carry 30 marks. It's a lot. So we have to make sure that we score our standard, your internal assessment because it carries 30 marks. When it's carry 30 marks, your paper 2 is a 40 marks. So there is a chances every 1 marks of your paper 2 is equivalent that your final marks in your exams. So even any small things matters over here, having the diagrams. Okay, so let's then we go by the real new stuff of our chapters. This chapter 28 will be maybe on the characteristic of different countries. Then we move on into in what way the different countries are different from each other. So that's why it says diversities. They are not 100% the same. They do have a common features, but sometimes they are unique on their own. Okay, depending on the nature. So let's move down to the next one. So things yang kita dah belajar, kita just go through. Okay, let's move down to what is member economic developments. Okay, so maybe we can go one by one. If we go by first paragraph, economic developments, what will be the key words that we need to highlight from this paragraph? The key terms kat sini or the key talking about terms yang can be used as something that we can relate to. For me, I would say it's one-dimensional concept. Betul tak? Okay lah, kita baca lah ya kan. So kita suruh Dina lah baca, Dina. The first paragraph.
Okay. The national income statistics discussed in Chapter 13 provide important information about a country's economic activity. They form the basis for assessing a country's economic growth. However, economic growth is very much a one-dimensional concept. It is, quite simply, an increase in the real output of an economy over time. Traditional economic theory has tended to make the assumption that increased output of an economy, along with the pattern of industrialization that accompanies economic growth, is equivalent to economic development. This is a simplistic and incorrect assumption. Sama ke, teacher?
Tak payahlah. So what
Okay.
would be the key? What would be the elements? What paragraph ni? Talking about the paragraph ni cakap apa, Dina?
Dia bagi tahu pasal economic development ni sekejap. Dia bagi tahu how economic growth ni the assumption yang economic growth ni is the same to economic development.
100% the same ke?
Tak, dia just bagi
Used
it's
to
not
be.
actually in its way.
Yeah, so I think the old concept. So if you were nak senang kat sini, economic growth is not economic development. Economic growth, we were looking at the national output, real output produced, national income produced. And since we are looking at figures, we only look at the monetary rates, we only look at that. We say it's one-dimensional concept. We are looking at one factor. Okay. So the next one, can we have siapa lagi kita pakai? Christina. Dah lama tak dengar suara you, Christina. Oh, dah dengar tadi. Nak dengar lagi lah suara you.
Yes, teacher. The last decades have seen the evolution of a new branch of economics, development economics. At the core of this study is the fact that economic growth is not equivalent to economic development. Economic development is a far more complex and multidimensional concept. For economic development to occur, growth must be inclusive. That is, it must benefit all people in the economy, not just a small percentage of high-income people. Furthermore, economic growth is of no use if it comes with a cost that must be borne by future generations, and so real economic progress must be development that is sustainable.
Okay, so it lists up so many things. Economic development is a multi-dimensional concept. So if you have it in your definitions and you says economic development is multi-dimensional concepts, will you get marks for that?
Yes.
Yes. Yang lain setuju?
No, teacher.
Okay, siapa kata no tadi?
Yeah.
Okay, senang cakap no eh. Tadi siapa yang cakap setuju tadi? Ada orang cakap setuju at the same time tadi kan?
Diana, teacher.
Diana, okay. Yang lain? Nak panggil Ayub? Tak ada. Panggil Lab? Tak ada. Kita panggil siapa? Ellie?
Tak setuju, teacher.
Tak setuju. Okay, so last one. Alia, what do you think? Can we use can you give economic development is a multi-dimensional concepts in our definitions? Dapat markah tak?
I think no.
Yes. Okay. So I think no tu macam you nak bagi reason ke tak ada reason nak bagi?
Kalau reason saya sebab saya rasa kalau multidimensional concept tu macam simple sangat. So tak dapat full mark. Kena ada
Yes.
lagi.
Okay. Multi-dimensional concept tu is words. Kalau you buat essay nak tunjukkan you have a better understanding. But if you having a definition of economic developments, maybe you really go by in term of talking about we are looking at both the monetary, the national income, and also on the standard of living with many factors that we look at the well-being of the people. Is that right? So it need to be more detail oriented well-beings of the people itself. But of course, we take notes that economic growth must come with money. Just like people says that tak ada duit, kita tak bahagia, right? No love, no money, no love. Betul ke? Betul kan? Ya Zima, betul lah Zima. You tak ada duit, you nak makan apa? Sayang ke orang kalau orang tu tak bagi makan, nak makan apa? So, okay, so let's go to the next paragraph. Azima, kita baca the very basic definition tu.
A very basic definition of development might be an improvement in living standards or economic well-being or welfare. However, this is somewhat simplistic, so we now expand on this notion. Yet, we must always keep in mind the very subjective nature of the concept and be aware that there is a wide range of possible explanations.
Yeah, so basically, looking at the living standard well-being of the people, but we have to be detailed. So continue, for example.
For example, development economists Amartya Sen, see the biography box, makes a powerful link between development and freedom.
Siapa ke Amartya Sen ni? Kita biar dulu lah, nanti kita baca history, bio dia.
Amartya Sen's brief quotation at the start of the chapter demonstrates the multidimensional nature of development. Development is about increasing people's freedoms. It is about reducing poverty so that people can be adequately fed and sheltered. It is about the public provision of education, healthcare, and the maintenance of law and order. It is about the guarantee of civil liberties and the opportunity for civic participation.
The next page, Husna. Dah tak ada? Dia sampai situ Okay. So can we go up in term of when, okay, Martha Singh actually being more detailed in the sense that talking about when it says economic developments, it must be something improvement in educations, improvements in, people no longer living in poverty, people having a more decent way of life. So that's what we say when we say development. So it is something like together with the people well-being. So let's have a look of our uncle ni. So Aziz baca pasal uncle ni.
Amartya Sen was born in West Bengal, India. At the age of 9, he had his first encounter with suffering on meeting victims of the Bengal famine in which 3 million people died. Later, his work on famine research led to the publication of Poverty and Famines and the Essay of Entitlement and Deprivation, addressing the inequalities in access to food. While at secondary school, Sen was uncertain as to what academic discipline he should study. In his own words, I seriously fled in turn with Sanskrit, mathematics, and physics before settling for the eccentric charms of economics. At the age of 18, Sen left India to study economics at Trinity College, Cambridge, where he earned both his Bachelor of Arts and his doctorate. He has held several teaching positions, including at the University of Calcutta, Jadavpur University, Ilang.
Sorry, teacher. Saya nak tanya. Saya balik.
Why are you laughing?
Okay.
University of Oxford, London School of Economics, Harvard, and Cambridge. While working at Harvard, he teamed up with an old friend, Mahbub ul Haq, a reputed Pakistani economist. Together, they contributed to the establishment of the Human Development Index and the Human Development Report, published annually by the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. Such developments have allowed economic development to be evaluated on a range of measures rather than on the classical macroeconomic indicators such as GNP or GDP. Having published an impressive number of books and publications, Sen has also received a number of awards, including the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1988 for his contribution to welfare economics. He has had a powerful influence on the study of development economics as well as on international institutions and national governments.
Okay, so Amata Singh is the founder of Hashtag Index together with dengan kawan dia, is that right? So it comes with a background. He's talking about from his caring attitudes to the poor and talking about developments. Then we come up with how we see economics looks at economic developments. Is it on materials or talking about the standard of living? So such a good thing. So cuma the index tu is not a name under him sebab dia ada partner, is that right? Kalau tidak nama dia lah kot. Okay, so let's move on to, I think the next one will be on the next page will be in term of concept, is that right? Okay, sebab kita tak cukup masa, kita pure does economic growth lead to economic developments, we go by source, before we go for sources, kat situ kita go by economic content tu, yang equity tu, key concept. Sebab I don't think kita ada enough time nak cakap pasal yang tu. Okay, talking about theory of knowledge, so this is something you are good at, so you have a better hand rather than me on the theory of knowledge, is that right? So, 3 core values. So, siapa yang pandai TOK in your class? Ayib tak ada, Let tak ada.
Yang tinggal Dina teacher.
Okay, yang Dina. Okay, Dina nak ajak siapa baca Dina? Dina boleh co-explain dengan kawan.
Nak ajak saya baca?
Nanti dia explain, teacher tak pandai.
Azim lah teacher.
Okay, Hazim.
Ya, teacher.
Baca dan explain.
Nampak teacher.
3 core values.
Una left teacher. Sekejap. Saya tak buka buku lagi teacher. Saya tengok screen dah.
Husna agaknya dia nak explain kot. Itu tu dia left.
Muka Sarawak teacher.
Teacher saya boleh
Okay, thank you. Agaknya Husna internet dia tak apa clear. That will be page 425. 425. Our standardized test kita nak buat masa remedial ke nak buat masa kelas? Buat masa remedial lah. So that kita boleh, okay, remedial kita pukul 3.50 kan? Okay, theory of knowledge, Hazim.
3 core values. Another economist, Michael Todero, developed the work of Dennis Goulet to present his view of the essential features of development. At the outset is his observation of development as a sustained elevation of an entire social system toward a better or more humane life. The use of the words better and more humane are reminders of the subjective nature of the discussion. However, he identifies 3 core values or fundamental human needs. If life is to be made better, then There must be progress in meeting these three core values. First, sustenance, the ability to meet basic life-sustaining needs for food, shelter, health, and protection. Second, self-esteem, the ability of people and communities to develop a sense of self-worth, identity, dignity, and respect. Number freedom from servitude and the ability to choose. This involves expanding the range of choices for people and societies and granting them freedom from oppression from external factors. The subjective nature of the topic make it impossible to accept that these are universal truth.
How you discuss then that the subjective nature of the topic make it impossible to accept these universal truth. So in your TOK, how you are supposed to approach that? Jawapannya, ya ke tidak ke? Oh yeah, someone asking about the test, kita buat pukul 2:30 boleh? Tak, Hazimah tak nak? Pukul 3 boleh?
3 teacher.
Okay. Kenapa 2:30 tak nak?
Aku
Nak
tak
makan
sempat nak makan.
Oh, okay. Well, 3 Okay. Boleh je. Lina,
Ha?
ajar teacher dia. What does it mean? Soalan tu apa sebenarnya?
Dia just basically nak tanya our opinion. Okay, so sebab this, dia kan dah establish yang what it means to have a better or more human life kan. So ada three
Yang dia
core
buat 3
values.
tu
So basically we just have to answer lah sama ada we agree yang all these three universal values ni semua orang boleh accept as universal ataupun tak boleh accept, ataupun boleh accept tapi ada limitations dia.
Okay. So kita suruh kawan you lah jawab. The first one boleh accept ke tak boleh accept as universal truth, is it right? Okay, Dina, panggil kawan you suruh jawab.
Arham teacher.
Okay. Arham jawab. Do you think it's a universal truth? Truth means that memang betul 3 is a 1 Is that what you mean?
Macam tu lah.
Okay. Arham, what do you think?
I think it is possible actually, because the establishment of this topic is well made, that everyone seems to believe that this is the universal truth.
Then do you think it's a universal truth?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Kalau dia cakap macam tu je Dina. Is it?
Biasanya dia macam kena justify
Kenapa?
lah kenapa boleh accept.
Okay. So if you were to answer this question, you jawab macam mana Dina? Dina aja teacher okay kan?
Maybe boleh cakap yang okay, kalau ikut the essay structure tu biasanya like kita bagi tahu first macam kenapa, contohnya kalau we accept yang these values are universal truths, kita boleh cakap yang maybe sustenance, self-esteem dengan freedom from servitude and ability to choose ni is general enough for everyone to it's general enough for everyone lah. Maksudnya everyone does need does need food, shelter, health and protection. Everyone needs worth, identity, dignity and respect, and everyone needs oppression from external factors. Tapi we have to macam, even though kita agree, we have to explore the limitations jugalah. So macam kena bagi kind of like the counterclaim tu. So counterclaim boleh jadi macam kan I said yang okay, this universal truth ni boleh accept sebab dia general enough for everyone. Tapi counterclaim boleh jadi it's actually not these three universal truth is not really universal sebab maybe like from different culture, dignity and respect tu does not correlate dengan material sangat ke macam tu.
Okay. The different culture, freedom is limited, right? Okay, faham teacher. Okay, so let's go down sedikit on humans or on the factors or source of growth too. Talking about what the factors that may actually promote growth. So the first one we have natural resources. Then second one, apa nanti teacher go through lebih kurang. That one talking about human capital and then the physical capital, the technologies. So okay then going down in terms of institutional framework. So basically when talking about economic growth, we are looking, if you go by diagram, basically there are two diagrams. One is PPC diagrams, production possibility curve of frontier. Another one, our ADAS. Okay, but if you go by the simple PPC curve, then you go what make the PPC curve increases or shift outwards to the right. Then one of the main criteria is talking about changes in the resources there. Okay, so that's why it's similar over here. Resources could be in terms of natural resources. Okay, their resources could be in terms of labor, right? And then what would be the third one would be technology. Okay, then apa lagi yang tadi going down? Human capitals, labor lah tu physical, right? Physical. Tiga adalah infrastructure, adalah third one will be physical. Is it what physical? Physical capital will be on technical factors. So basically, but if you if you have questions and then you jawab macam tu, then maka tak ada. So you have to be very specific in terms of in what way. How does the human capital works, right? To increase economic growth. So this is where you can actually describe in terms of quantity wise. We have more people working in that country itself. So maybe if we have more quantity, it's very impossible to have the maid force overnight. So, we have to have more people workforce. So you cannot ask the mother, to produce offspring, and then it takes like 10-20 years. So the shortcut will be on the quantity by reducing, relaxing immigrations, policies, whatsoever. They're the shortcuts. Okay. But another one will be having like the quality of people. So the quality of people takes a lot of times in the education training. It's very time consuming, but a lasting one. Okay. And at the same time, don't forget it takes a lot of government spending. Okay, so we have two things we can look at in terms of human capital or whatsoever. And if you were to go into our natural resources, so this is what we have, what we Malaysia has, right? So we are blessed enough. We have lands, some of the lands, most of the lands are fertile. We do have a fish, for example, close by. Okay, and we do have people who actually more productive. So human capital, natural resources, it could be in terms of materials that you have. Maybe Malaysia having petroleums. We do have maybe golds. We have like agriculture industry will be palm oil plantations, rubber. We do have even palak, timber, and ones. So let's go by the nature. So if you are a country like Singapore with a small islands with very limited resources, means that you'll not be able to rely on natural resources to boost up your economy. Okay, so that's what those small island realize that they cannot depends on their natural resources. So they move on to Singapore will be labor. Okay, so labor against we have two in terms of immigrations or immigrants. or another one would be labor. So really depends on the planning. So all those things takes planning. Kalau you go by human capital, people, orang, we give them enough trainings, a good trainings, so that they be an expert takes time sometimes. Okay. Okay. Not to mention that technology is very much matter because it is a technical know-how. It's a technical know-how how to produce. So if we don't have a technology, we have limited knowledge, then we will not be able to produce the most effective things. Or what we producing may not be efficient simply because we do not know the exact tools or gadgets to increase our production. So efficiency will be affected. Tapi ditambah dua physical sebab capital is technology, of course. With the new technology, we come up with a new physical capital like robots, for example, right? Or even you pernah tak your times that your mom told you that dulu nak masak sambal kena giling sambal biji lada, pernah tak? Okay, so during that times they don't have the technology of blender, as simple as that. Now we have blender. Now the latest one adalah, what's the latest technology? Barang dapur yang teacher selalu sangat pakai dan your family pun mungkin sama ke?
Air fryer.
Air fryer okay ke? Teacher order online. Is that right? Thermomix. Oh yeah. Thermomix is getting famous nowadays. Yeah, you are right. Teacher tak ada ni. Tak ada gadget ni. Okay. So we're going to stop now because we have class. So next class. Wow. Guna Thermomix. Thermomix tu masak apa? Ada mana guna
Semua
ke?
boleh teacher.
Semua boleh? Berapa ringgit